Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today, we're joined again by Peter Kirsch, founder and CEO of Blue Marlin Partners. Pete, welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks for having me, Matt, again. It's always a pleasure.
No, it's great having you on. So, Pete, can you give us a reminder of our last discussion on the Blue Marlin model?
Sure. Not to get too far in the weeds, but we're just a very differentiated private equity business located here in Bethesda, Maryland, and that it's grown pretty substantially since I launched this business about 8 years ago. And the model is differentiated because in the traditional way, when people invest in a private equity fund, they commit a certain amount of capital and it's called. They don't have a choice on what they invest in. And they also have to pay a certain percentage of fees every quarter. They have partnership expenses. They really can't manage their liquidity. Blue Marlin is differentiated in the way we don't charge fees, we don't charge partnership expenses, and we allow our investors to pick and choose their own investments. But maybe the most important thing is all of our investors are owners of our company. They own a piece of the carried interest in Blue Marlin, and all of them are very, very successful business operators and entrepreneurs in their own right. They've either sold their business and are going to continue to invest and sit on boards and provide value, or maybe they're still operating their business, but they're looking for something else to get involved with in an industry that they might not be familiar with. So it's been quite a run, and never thought we'd be where we are today, but we're north of $800 million of capital deployed. We've got 30 platform companies. We just had our 8th exit, and hopefully we'll have our 9th here in about 2 weeks. And our returns are, 31.8% IRRs, which is as good as you can probably get in the traditional private equity world.
Wow. That's fantastic. Congratulations. I mean, that is impressive. I mean, so you know what? Let's continue on that path. I mean, you've already won, numerous awards this year, like for Mobetta. And they're with their M&A deal of the year. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, last year was a really special year for us. The traditional, again, in the M&A world, it was, if you watch CNBC enough, they would tell you the M&A world was pretty dead. We actually had one exit last year. We sold our landscape business, got our guys 4.3 times their money in about 4 years. We did 4 bolt-ons to our existing portfolio. And then we also had 3 investments, one in Apricus, one in Ingenuity, and then in October, we acquired 100% of a company called Mobetta's, a Hawaiian barbecue concept located in Utah. Paid $150 million for it. And about a month and a half ago, we found out we received the M&A Deal of the Year in the restaurant industry, and since then have received 3 additional awards. So it's pretty exciting for little Blue Marlin to get an M&A award in 2023. But I think it says 2 things. Number one, it says the M&A market was a little slow, but it also says the boutique private equity firms like us are really being successful.
Yeah, no, that's spectacular. So, let's talk about kind of what you're seeing in the private equity world today.
Yeah, it's a very different time. I think it's a time of transition. You go back to, I don't know, I kind of mark everything by COVID for good or for bad. And you go back 6, 7, 8 years, and the traditional private equity world was funds. They were raising capital, they were raising funds. And now we've seen this whole phenomenon of family offices coming into the market. And I think you know this. I ran a family office from 2000 to 2010, Matt. And that was way before family offices were even, coined family offices here in the United States. And so we're seeing a significant transition in the private equity world where family offices are looking for their own deals to do. They're also looking for partners and co-investments where, 7, 8 years ago, the traditional private equity funds just thought families, rich people, wealthy people would give them money and they would get to do whatever they want. So it's all also now about making businesses better. It was interesting. I was at a conference about 4 months ago, 3 months ago, and on the panel there was a managing director of a very large private equity fund, a name that you would recognize if I said it. And somebody asked him what the difference in private equity today versus 7, 8 years is. And I couldn't believe he said this out loud. He said, 6, 7, 8 years ago, we used to buy a business, we'd levered up a bit, and we go out and do some bolt-ons and add-ons to the platform. And through multiple expansion, we'd sell it and we'd get really great returns. Today, we actually have to make businesses better, and that's really difficult. And, when I started Blue Marlin, that was the whole thesis. Bring in great operators, sit on the board, have them lead our investments, and try to make the businesses better. So I think it's fascinating that, the traditional world is working really hard to transition to making businesses better, which is what we should be in the business of doing anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we've seen several, kind of high profile examples of private equity firms going in and then leveraging that, debt to a great extent and kind of hobbling the company and then having to, or not, whether it's having to or getting to sell it off for pieces, sell off the
Yeah.
real estate to make all the money. You've destroyed the company, but as a private equity firm, you've made a ton of money. Did you make it better? No, the exact opposite. So I think, it's cool to see that Blue Marlin and kind of private equity as a whole, you founded it on the idea of making companies better versus what at the time was traditionally make money kind of at all costs.
Yeah, and that's our value proposition, right? Is when you look at our portfolio, we're lower middle market. We're good old-fashioned cash flowing companies, and our entire portfolio that we've created is proprietary deals. So we're chasing bank deals every once in a while, but so far to date, our entire portfolio has been proprietary, and all of our deals were founder led. So again, the value proposition: let's make businesses better. Let's buy 60, 65, 70% of the business. Let's have founders roll 20, 25, 30% of the business. Now they get this significant second bite at the apple when we sell the business a second time in 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And I think that's why one of the reasons we're being so successful and we get the deal flow that we get.
Well, let's walk through that a little bit because I think for a lot of people, I think they might not be clear on how you get these deals versus other people. I think it's pretty clear the value proposition, the competitive advantage, but how do they come across your desk? Like how do you guys get it?
So there's kind of three buckets here. So I have, I just think our network is pretty good. When I ran the family office for the founder of AOL, excuse me, here in Washington, D.C., we were back in the day probably the only family office in the D.C. Baltimore area. So we saw everything coming into Washington, D.C. So I worked really hard to keep up that network. We've also have now 5 offices across the country. We opened one in Dallas. We have one in Chicago. We have opened up one in Montreal. We'll be opening one in London in the fall, and we'll probably most likely be opening one in Dubai in the winter. So we've expanded our investor base and our geographical base. Deal flow is also geographical. It's just not based on who you know. I learned that very quickly when we went west of the Mississippi and opened an office in Dallas. But maybe most important, like I said, all of our investors, most of them don't have big family offices. Most of them are, by themselves with one or two or three individuals. And when you have a very successful partner, investor, operator, someone of high net worth, deal flow comes across their desk. And we're their go-to or we're their go-to partner to send it over to us. We look at it, run it through our filter, and we'll handle all the diligence for all of our partners. So right now we're sitting at around 72 investment partners, names that many of your people listening would recognize, people who built very big companies. But the power of our network has really become, I would say, an unintended benefit from when I started the business. I
Right.
never thought that the network would be so powerful. And these people just love spending time together because no one's asking them for anything.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point because you once you get this network of that many people, the deals are coming to them, they're bringing them into you so
Yep.
much. I mean, you've really kind of amplified the that money and that network considerably versus the traditional family office or even traditional private equity firm that just has those internal people working and their network. You've now done it many times larger than that.
That's exactly right. We bought a landscape company, 4 years ago. It was the second time this investor had done the landscape business and was highly successful. One of our investors, it's the fourth time they're building a solar business, a solar developer. They built it 3 times, exited very successfully. Now we're their partner on the fourth time. So the rinse, wash, and repeat model really works. And going back to Mobetta's situation, that was a process. We kind of know the QSR and fast casual space pretty well. We own 182 Dunkin' Donuts. We own a Jersey Mike's, 49 Jersey Mike's. We are investors in Mission Barbecue. And when that deal came across our desk, we just said we don't participate in processes. Well, after they ran their process, they called us up and said, "Will you take a look at this, and we'll take you we'll put you on the side of the process." And 4 months later, we own Mobetta's because of the value that we were bringing to the founders.
But I think one of the things I find really interesting is that you've been able to transact on both the sell and the buy side over the last 2 years when the rest of the industry really hasn't.
Yeah.
So why is that?
Well, I would say my old boss used to say greed's a terrible thing. And
Is it?
we're lower middle market. We like businesses $5 to $10 million, and we take them to 25, $30 million, and then we can exit into another private equity firm or a strategic. And when we find an opportunity or there's an opportunity to transact for our investors and get a very nice return, whether it's a short period of time or it's the investment period that we set out for at the beginning, we're true to our word and we'll exit. We're not raising our next fund. So when when we have an opportunity to provide an exit for our investors, we take it.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Whether it's a buy or sell side, right?
That's
So
it.
there you go. I
Yeah.
love it. That's fantastic, Pete. I tell you what, this has been an absolute blast. It was great catching back up. Congratulations on
Amen.
all the success, and I look forward to having you back on again to hear about more success and more changes. So
Outstanding, Matt. Great to see you always.
absolutely. Till
Thank
next
you.
time.
Okay.
Thanks, Pete.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.